Identify the suspension wall channel. Measure and cut it to the proper length. This is the suspension wall channel. This end is factory formed to fit the gutter and must not be cut off. Place the unbent tab end of the suspension wall channel against the structure or high side. Hold the other end against the support post on the gutter side to mark its exact length. Cut the suspension wall channel at the mark, being certain not to cut the factory-made end. Measure down from the fold on the wall channel suspension bracket to the mark we made to define the level of the ceiling in the first step. Our example shows this measurement at 1 inch. The drop from the high side of the underdeck to the gutter is 1/8 inch per foot. Our model deck is 8 feet deep. This makes our ceiling level drop 1 inch. We measured and marked from the bandboard 4 inches to reflect that drop. Measure from the fold in the wall channel suspension bracket to the ceiling level and get 2 inches. On the upstream or structure end of the suspension wall channel, measure 1 inch from the manufactured edge. Add to that 1 1/2 inches which will be inserted into the wall channel suspension bracket. Mark that measurement. On the opposite end, measure an additional 1/8 inch per foot to account for the drainage drop. In the 8-foot model we used, the drop is 1 inch, so we showed 2 inches. Add to that the 1 1/2 inches which will be inserted into the wall channel suspension bracket. Mark that measurement. Snap a chalk line between the marks you just made on the suspension wall channel. Cut along the chalk line. Make a notch in the newly trimmed edge of the suspension wall channel using a snap lock punch. Hold the punch so that the protrusion it makes is on the painted side of the suspension wall channel. Do not use the cut edge as the guide for your punch. Your cut may not be straight. Instead, locate your notches where the edge closely matches your chalk line. 2 or 3 notches is sufficient. Bend the square tab on the suspension wall channel to a 90-degree angle. Insert the notched edge of the suspension wall channel into the folded edge of the wall channel support bracket. The notches will catch onto the folded edge on the inside of the wall channel support bracket. Screw the square tab on the suspension wall channel onto the support post on the gutter or downstream side. Installation of the second suspension wall channel follows these steps. They are repeated from the steps shown earlier in this video. Measure 3 inches down from the bottom of the rim joist at the upstream or structure end to determine the level of the ceiling at the structure. Hold the tabbed end of the suspension wall channel against the structure or high side of the underdeck. Measure the length of the suspension wall channel by holding it against the support post on the downstream or gutter side. Cut the suspension wall channel to that length. Measure down from the fold of the wall channel suspension bracket on the structure or upstream end to the mark made in step 1. Note that measurement. Measure down from the fold on the wall channel suspension bracket on the downstream end to the top of the gutter support. Note that measurement. Add 1 1/2 inches to the measurements made in step 4 and 5. Mark the measurements you just created on each end of the suspension wall channel. Cut along that line. Make a notch in the newly trimmed edge of the suspension wall channel using a snap lock punch. Hold the punch so that the protrusion it makes is on the painted side of the suspension wall channel. Do not use the cut edge as the guide for your punch. Your cut may not be straight. Instead, locate your notches where the edge closely matches your chalk line. 2 or 3 notches is sufficient. Bend the square tab on the suspension wall channel to a 90-degree angle. Insert the newly trimmed edge of the suspension wall channel into the fold on the wall channel suspension bracket. Tug the wall channel toward the gutter to close any gap. Drive a screw through the tab on the gutter end of the suspension wall channel to hold it firmly in place. The suspension wall channel will stand out from the structure slightly. Drive screws to hold it properly against the wall. Apply sealant to prevent leaks along the wall channel suspension bracket. Use this method to test for leaks wherever sealant is applied. A good practice is to test for and repair any leaks as soon as the sealant is applied. Use a small pressurized garden sprayer directing a thin stream of water to check if the sealant applied in a previous step leaks. A leak will show up immediately. If a leak appears, run a bead of sealant between the wall channel support bracket and the structure wall. Use a thin tool to spread the sealant after it is applied. A 1/4 by 1/2 inch carpenter's pencil is ideal. It is important that the bottom of the bandboard not be sealed. Water must not be trapped behind the bandboard. It must be allowed to drain away from the structure.